I wanted to approach this from a very realistic, grounded, practical kind of universe. I think that because the notion of a kid getting bitten by a spider and being able to fly through the streets is so crazy, I think I wanted to go against that by creating a world that felt as real as possible.
Mark's mandate when we came on was to create a new Spider-Man within a new world, so a more electronically savvy, hooked up world. He wanted evidence of technology everywhere. Earbuds, cell phones, computers, and particularly the way young people would use technology and science.
Kim Barrett was our costume designer, who's fantastic. She had done, the Matrix films, Romeo and Juliet for Baz Luhrmann. She's somebody who understands both the realism that we were going for, but also wanted to make it sexy and fun and exciting and vibrant and youthful.
This is the costume. This is the outfit. It's different. I mean, we're changing things up.
Yeah.
Kim Barrett did an incredible job, and when you first wear it, it's like, oh, okay, here we are. I better savor this moment. And it is a surreal thing when you see yourself embodying something that's meant so much to you. But there is a really interesting thing about it because it doesn't belong to you. You very, very quickly realize that it's not you. It isn't you in the suit. It is a symbol. It's just a pure symbol.
I took the idea of Peter Parker creating the spider costume inside the computer, and also the idea of what would happen if there was a gigantic blast of wind and it flew a giant spider web onto a person's body. How would the spider web wrap across the form of a person and create a kind of a pattern? If it changes the ratio of how wide the web looks, whether it really is wider or not, then we should widen the web. Once we, of course, had Andrew cast, it became important that I used that idea but actually constructed on top of Andrew's real physique to create those lines and shapes into a more aerodynamic, kind of sport-like Spider-Man.
We wanted the suit to express and enhance the sort of leanness of Spider-Man rather than making him bulky and clumsy. I thought it was important for him to have a spidery quality about him.
Yeah, that looks really, really good.
Good.
Kim did a really good job of enhancing the length and the narrowness of his body. We were trying to create a suit that felt somewhat legitimate in terms of this kid could make it, and we spent some time developing the ideas behind that.
We had to believe that Peter Parker actually constructed the suit himself. So things like sunglasses, lenses, and shoes and elements like that.
Well, I was thinking, how would a kid make a suit? Well, he'd probably take tennis shoes and cut the bottoms of them and use that as the pads of the shoes. I mean, if he's making his own suit, who wouldn't do that? It seems a logical thing to do. I
knew that we had to keep it streamlined and keep the silhouette simple. So I looked for shoes that, kept the shape of the foot but still could support it and was still strong. And it came down to basically a track and field shoe. We looked at heaps and heaps and heaps of shoes, and these three, for the podiatrist, for him, and for us came up that's really great. So we chose that one, and then we worked on it, pulling it apart, incorporating it into the suit, kind of building it into a boot almost. In terms of the lenses, again, it was, well, how do you make those lenses if you're a kid? You pull them out of sunglasses. And so that's what we did. We had him pull them out of a set of sunglasses and make lenses that could legitimately be created or found in the world around Peter Parker. The lenses were something which we had to have specially created, and a friend of mine who I worked with on The Matrix, Richard Walker, and I have collaborated on lots of sunglass designs over the years, and he once again helped me create prototype lenses for us. And there are 100 sets in the world, and that's what we have. So
the big change that we made was to go away from the organic web shooters and go to the mechanical web shooters. So that's a huge difference, that's more in line with the comic books. To me, the web shooters were a way to dramatize his intellect and his ability to build things and his sort of scientific mechanical abilities. And what better way to do that than to have him make the web shooters? And that's what Stan Lee had done, and we always liked that idea.
The best thing about the mechanical web shooters was there would be times when he needed his webs and he ran out. And what is he gonna do? And as a writer, it's always great to have a story where you have a great way for your hero to get into trouble. Because if everything works well for him, there's no excitement, there's no interest.
Well, this is the web shooter wristband. So this is actually the final stages of it. This one's been aged. And we show you, this is the straps that hold down the web shooter itself.
My dad had a watch band in the 60s that was a leather band, and you put your watch in it, and my dad's a geologist. He had a little leather snap cover that went over the lens. So we thought that that would be a good way for him to hide the web shooter if he didn't want anyone to see.
The suit is what people love. Whatever body is in that suit, it doesn't really matter. That's what I find so wonderful about this character, is that he is everyone's, and he is everyone.
I had a very childlike moment when I saw him in the Spider-Man suit for the first time, because we had to do the camera test where they look at all our costumes and our hair and our makeup, and so he walked in and I was dressed as Gwen and he was dressed as Spider-Man, and I immediately just touched him because you're in the room with Spider-Man, which is really insane, and it's not like Halloween Spider-Man, it's like movie magic Spider-Man where the suit is like perfect and rubberized and just so intricate, and there was a moment where I just said to him, like, you have to understand that everyone in this room is like, we're in the room with Spider-Man, this is as Spider-Man as it gets. That suit is just amazing, it's beautiful.
All the power you feel, would you give it all up?
Reese is a very handsome man, and also he's the anti-hero.
Promising, but the solution I'm thinking of is more radical.
You have to love him to hate him. I did try and kind of give him a little bit of a old world professor look, but in a modern way. And, you know, he can carry that off. And since we have a good visual effects budget, we should use his real arm to a certain point and then like a green screen glove for the rest of it. For the most part, it looks more realistic because his arm is still there till just above the elbow.
Then, of course, for fun, he's going to turn into a lizard and he's going to whack Spider-Man around and he's going to be a formidable adversary.
Now, Avi was playing with some designs for the creature very, very early on, a long time ago. I mean, he walked into my office ages ago, I don't remember when this was, with these drawings that he had someone do of the lizard.
We had a pretty good idea of what he was going to look like before the movie started. We decided, let's play with it. Let's see what can we make him look like.
Early on, Mark and I, decided this should be a scary-looking thing, and it should really look we should really research and see what lizards look like. I think the first week, I went down to a pet shop that my kids go to, and I bought a bearded dragon, but a big one, and put it in a case. We planted it in Mark's room, and it was like, from the beginning, he became the mascot, and we nicknamed him Boris, so he became an inspiration. Every time we wanted to refer to, scales or whatever, we just pointed at Boris, so that was fun.
We spent a massive quantity of time looking at the jaw of the lizard, and the armature in the mouth and the lips and how his teeth moved and what the actual anatomy of a lizard is and how because he has to speak occasionally.
Nowhere to hide, Peter.
How does the mouth move that it would speak? How does the skin reflect under certain lighting scenarios? What are the different textures of a lizard?
The last time we made up Reese, we saved the pieces and we just put them here as reference for us. And as you can see, it does become very fleshy looking, and there's different variations on how we've painted them. Some of them will blend really well into the skin and it'll just look like textured flesh, and other parts will look, more like a lizard quality.
I don't want spikes and weird hair and not that sort of face.
No, you want it to almost like it's like almost like a disease that's taking over his face or something. We early on talked about how tall and how big and everything else and how muscular, and that kind of defined a zone that we were getting into, which was it suggested that he's bigger than a human being.
Then we printed out the 8-foot tall as head.
in this pose, and then we did a 7'6" and then a 7 foot, and then we actually had someone standing here for scale reference, and we talked with the director and everybody else, and just ended up landing at 7'6" in this pose.
We had a couple of extraordinary sculptors who early on did some beautiful work. And then finally, we went to the full-size head, shoulders, for reference for the visual effects department. This beautiful bust, and it was extraordinary, and it's creepy looking. It's like Madame Tussauds when you walk in and you look at something and you swear to God it's going to move. This is what it would look like, so it was great.
The space between the eyes is exactly the same, and we've done, you know, a plethora of scans and studies of my skull. And then they modelled the scans they did of my head and married them with the models they made of the lizard. So, I mean, I don't know whether an audience will see it. Definitely they'll notice the eyes. But it's kind of strange, yeah. Kind of sexy.
My belief is that if you can bring out the humanity in the lizard, that's the key to making it more real.